Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, the new Biden administration is about to introduce its first major piece of legislation, and it refers to a strange subject, but it's one that is clearly a major preoccupation on the part of the Biden people and, of course, of the congressional Democrats, namely the topic of immigration. It will be introduced by two Democrats, one in the Senate, one in the House, and there are a number of provisions in it. The most important of which is essentially a pathway to citizenship for everyone who is living in the United States illegally at the moment. The media in lockstep always repeat the number 11 million. It was 11 million 20 years ago. It can't still be 11 million, but there it is. It's absolutely, it's 11 million. So there's a pathway to citizenship for them. It's 8 years altogether. Then there's a shorter pathway to citizenship for the so-called DACA people, which are the people who came here with their parents. The people who overstayed their visas who were present in the country illegally. Any ban on their returning to the United States will be lifted. So, if you ever overstayed your visa, don't worry about it. You can go back to the United States. Obviously, there'll be no the executive orders have already banned the use of any public funds for the wall. The stay in Mexico policy while waiting for asylum, that's already gone. There's a couple of strange aspects to the policy. First of all, there is no promise, however hollow, of enhanced security at the border. There's always been a trade-off in the past. Well, whenever we said, okay, we'll have amnesty for everyone here, but in return, we pretty promise that we will have stronger enforcement mechanism at the border. There isn't even a pretense of that, as there was in the 2013 bill that passed the Senate but didn't pass the House. And the other thing that's interesting about this is that it is a total reversal of the Trump administration policy. I mean, so it's not just that they've knocked over everything that Trump did. They're going very drastically. This is much more drastic than the Obama amnesty program. And it is very odd, given that Biden's majority was extremely narrow. It was a very close election. So by no stretch of the imagination can it be interpreted as any kind of a mandate for a drastic change. One has to conclude that the Democrats think they have a very short window, less than 2 years before the next election, and they have to just get this thing through as fast as possible before the Republicans capture one or the other house. It's a major demographic change of the United States that they are planning. All right, Peter, what's your take?
Yeah, well, we've heard this talk before, but not during the time of a pandemic and an economic turndown. I just can't get my head around that. And the most broad issue that comes to mind when I was reading about this is that if the United States of America is deeply a racist country, systemic racism, why would all these people of color want to come to the United States? Shouldn't the liberals say, don't come, it's dangerous for you, okay? I mean, I'm just taking it to its logical conclusion. How can it be a systemic racist country when you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, millions already in the country? How in the world would these people want to stay if it's such a cruel, vicious, cold-hearted country run by white supremacists?
Yes.
They never address that issue. No. They want both narratives to work simultaneously. Right. Well, it's just dumb. It's stupid, okay? Now, a lot of Democrats are really worried about this, okay, because Trump was the issue that kept everything charged for 4 years. Now the heat is coming down in some respects, some policies being addressed, and immigration is the last one you should be fiddling with right now. Trump's policies were pretty good at the end of the day, okay? I think more should have been done. I think the wall should have been built. I still believe that. Hell, I mean, they built a wall around the Capitol. I mean, they don't want a wall on the border. Okay, you can't have, okay, let me make this clear to everyone. You cannot have an immigration policy if you don't control your sovereignty. You can't do it. It doesn't make any sense. You have to have sovereign control of your country before you can even begin to think about immigration. We're not in control of our border, all right? And so this is ridiculous, and it will backfire on them. I mean, you and I have talked for weeks now, since months now, since the election. I mean, what are they doing? Are they purposely taking up issues that will threaten their majority in both houses? Because they're doing it right now. Okay, this is, Democrats tend to walk in lockstep with rhetoric, but when it comes to these bread and butter issues, a lot of representatives are going to say, whoa, don't go too fast here, okay? Because this is a very hot issue with a lot of constituents, particularly if you live close to the border. Now, I don't care how the liberal media wants to portray this. This is a blanket amnesty. This is a huge amnesty here. Also, and of course, he's paying lip service to border security. That is what it is, lip security. I mean, you're right. This time around, at least they're not pretending so much. Okay, before it was always, one would follow the other. Now it's not. And what this does is it hurts minorities more than any other group of people in the United States. Poor people and minorities. Okay, and poor minorities. Look at what they call Latinos. Ask them what they think about it. It's a very hot wire issue with them too, because they don't want to bring where they live. They don't want it to be brought to them. That's why they want to be here. Okay. Now, look, I've made it very clear I'm not against immigration. I am not for blanket amnesties at all, okay? Because it's a slippery slope, okay? It'll happen again and again, and the word is already out. I mean, you and I reflected upon a clip that we saw. I don't know what station it was. Maybe it was CNN originally, but Joe Biden says it's okay to come. We're coming, okay? I mean, they interpreted it the way they wanted to, and rhetorically, this virtue signaling, everybody feels really great about it, but then when you start having a huge influx of people in communities where are not prepared for it, maybe do not want it. Are they going to just be people dropped off at the bus depot and let local authorities deal with it? And then it's just going to start the whole caravan thing all over again. So, I mean, there is lip service, and I wish people would take it seriously. Stop meddling in these countries. Leave them alone, okay?
That was something. Now, if you look at the Trump administration's policy, and we've talked about this before, he achieved a historic breakthrough, which was that it was the pay of people at the bottom of the ladder that was going up rather than the pay of the people at the top of the ladder. That's always been, for decade after decade, and the rich have been, getting fabulously wealthy year after year, but the people at the bottom, their incomes either remained flat or went down. But under Trump, the people at the bottom, the incomes went up. And of course, why did it go up? Because of the tight labor market. The tight labor market, because suddenly there was a restriction on people coming into the United States. It was a successful policy. He managed to get the Mexicans to cooperate with the policy of keeping them there in Mexico as they waited for their asylum hearing to take place, which meant that the flow of immigrants through Mexico came to an end. Of course, Mexico itself was grateful. Thank God now we don't have to put up with this flow of people from El Salvador and Guatemala going through our country up to the border. So that was that's why there was this good relationship between President Obrador and Trump. I mean, they were on the same page, which is that this is a really bad idea of just having unrestricted immigration flow. And so what, and as you said, what this is sending, this is a signal that is sending, come on over. Now, in theory, the legislation will say that it only applies, the amnesty only applies to people who were in the United States before January the 1st, 2021. Well, how are you going to prove that? People can come in next month and say, well, I don't have any papers. Yeah, I was here before January the 1st, 2021.
I even voted in the election. I even voted in the election.
Exactly. So it's an absolute, invitation to come on over. But I think that the point you made that hey, why come over? Because America is racist and it's run by white supremacists. I mean, the connection between the two positions, however illogical, is that they really don't like America very much, and they that's why they want to change it. I mean, some of the people who are pushing this immigration, quote, reform, unquote, are themselves immigrants. I mean, it's a very strange phenomenon of people coming to America as immigrants, and they just want to transform it. They don't think there's one of the congresswomen, I think Jayapal, she's from India, and she's been an immigration activist, all her life here in the United States. So that's her agenda. So it's really an attempt to use a kind of a mass migration to transform America, to change it drastically. It's
replace the
kind of project.
Well, for some, it's the replacement of the electorate.
Exactly.
Yeah. And there's something to that here. What I find with these razor thin majority, you really want to play with fire. Play with fire with this issue, because let me rewind back to 2015, 2016. Why do you think Trump exploded on the scene? Remember the escalator speech? Remember that? Well, that's why. Okay. Now, I'm not here to defend what Donald Trump said in his announcement, but I clearly recognize that he recognized that the American people recognize that this is an issue that needs to be dealt with very, very carefully. And Biden is just this is his big first. Why couldn't it have been infrastructure, what everyone agrees on? Okay. Not this issue here. I think it's going to blow up in their face. And you're absolutely right. And something you and I have talked about repeatedly, they have this 24-month window, and that's why they're doing it.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why they think, well, we can now achieve a major demographic transformation, because we're talking about 11 million amnesties. This could well be twice, 3 times as many. Not to mention that pretty much everyone who's coming in illegally, as we just said, will also be eligible for this. I mean, they're coming in and say, I was here before. So it's like, you're now getting a permanent pipeline of population, which will obviously make a huge dent in the. Now, it doesn't help African Americans, and unfortunately, they've kind of been sold a bill of goods, because said, okay, it's all about racism. It's racism that's keeping people out of the country. It's racism to refer to them as illegal aliens. It's racism to have a wall and to have any border control. And but basically, what does it do? I mean, and what immigration has been doing for decades, it's been driving down wages of African Americans. And so it's like, Democrats will that, well, maybe they can take for granted that constituency, and now they've got this new huge constituency of Hispanic voters.
Well, look at all of this blue states that are still under lockdown. Okay, they're locked down, but you won't close the border during a lockdown. Right. I don't understand this. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Look, I mean, there are people, because of the success of DeSantis in Florida, there are people talking about restricting people from going to Florida, but they're not going to restrict people from coming from the southern border without any kind of diagnostic testing for COVID. But you're willing to not allow people into the sovereign state of Florida, of the United States. but you just turn a complete blind eye. I don't know how many, it was 1,500 miles of border. I mean, and also, what about the wishes of Texas, of Arizona? Country states like this. This is existential for them here. All right. So I mean, and plus whatever role ICE is going to play. ICE gets such a bad rap. They were in Congress. It's up to Congress to deal with what they want to do with ICE. Okay, they were empowered, they were funded. Okay, so that's a political question there. So I just think it's just madness considering the economic situation in the country, the pandemic, and then nothing. But immigration is on the side. It has nothing to do with this. It's all connected here, and people will resent it. They will.
No, I mean, that's the thing. And that's why this is an entirely ideologically driven policy, because there's obviously no economic rationale to it. At the time of very high unemployment, at the time of a major economic downturn, there's absolutely no justification for more bringing in additional labor. I mean, the only effect it can have is to drive down pay. But this is driven, by the Democrats' need to transform the electorate to become a kind of a firmly Democratic constituency. So they will have a permanent majority. It's a very dangerous game to play because you simply don't know, what reaction this will provoke. Because after all, you do have, the native population, and how do they feel about just being replaced? Most times in history, people don't really care for being replaced by somebody else.
Well, I mean,
but that's what's happening now.
But we have to remember why people emigrate historically to the United States. They want to get away from where they're from. They don't want to move to a place that will become like the place that they left. Okay. And that's what a lot of immigrants want. They don't want the crime, the misery, the poverty, the lack of enforcement of laws and things like this. But left uncontrolled, then it's just going to replicate itself within the United States. I mean, and particularly with these insane, ideologically possessed, insane district attorneys, they're not going to be prosecuting these laws that of basics of public safety. Yep. All right. I mean, then for me, it's really interesting is that Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Where their voice when when you have so many illegals, and that is a legal term. That's not a slur. Right. That is the part of the U.S. code, illegal alien, and that's why I use it. It's not a loaded phrase. It is a legal phrase. Okay. And the number of times that the illegal aliens get stopped for drunk driving, killing people, okay? Right. These have real consequences. Now, I'm not saying every immigrant is a drunk driver, okay? I'm not saying that. My point is that we're going to have immigration. It's how we do it. And I still believe build a very big wall and have a door. Okay. And if you're necessary, look, most countries in the world control their immigration. I mean, these Americans, liberals, just think in their own little bubble. Most countries in the world go say, check boxes. Well, you don't have enough boxes checked. We don't need you here. Okay. We don't. Next.
That's exactly right.
How can you add? You want to come here? We're going to help you, but you got to give us something in return.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And of course, in the United States, as elsewhere, but particularly in the United States, you have the cheap labor lobby, which is corporations. Corporations, they don't want to pay their workers. And so when they go to Bangladesh or they go to Nigeria to recruit computer technicians, we are asked to believe that American universities, which are among the best in the world, aren't producing Americans who can do that work. Well, of course they're producing them, but they want to pay them a lot less. If you've gone through, a 3-4 year STEM program and you've run up massive college loans, you want a decently paid job at the end of it. Well, American corporations don't want to pay them a decent job, so they go recruiting in Bangladesh for people to do computer work that can easily be done by Americans.
It's much more insidious than that, George, because these types of visas where these people from Bangladesh, from India, come to the United States, it's a form of servitude. You
Absolutely.
cannot change jobs.
No, you don't.
Okay, you're paid less than your equivalent in the United States. I mean, it's like an opportunity. Sure, in some ways it is, but if you look at the level playing field in the United States, these people are second class workers, okay, and that's intended, okay. I mean, it's like indentured servitude, okay. You have to do this, and this before you get your freedom, okay. And I don't know what does it require them to return to their home country, or is it a pathway to citizenship? I don't know enough about that, but I do know that it's very insidious the way it's in practice, and not the way it's informed to the public.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So you get the sort of the illegals who come across the border. They take very the sort of the unskilled jobs. They're ready to do it $5-6 an hour, which obviously Americans don't want to do those jobs. And then you got the sort of the IT people who, again, well, let's bring in there's IT people from all over the world, so we don't have to pay them a decent pay. It is an absolutely disgraceful racket that the corporations have been getting away with, and they get away with it because so many people in Congress are on their payroll. I mean, they're a very powerful lobby, and the media, which play along with these ridiculous stories about labor shortage. We're in the middle of a pandemic, middle of an economic downturn, and you're still getting articles in the New York Times. Well, there's a labor shortage taking place. Employers are unable to find workers. Yeah, they're unable to find workers who are ready to do rubbishy jobs for $6 an hour. But it's not, if you pay people, they will do it. I mean, whatever the job, if you pay them, they will do it. The worst, dirtiest, jobs, with the least status, working down in the sewer, picking up trash. People will do it if you pay them. They won't do it for $5-6 an hour.
But it's for me, what is so disgusting about this is that if you don't agree with their policies, you're a racist. I mean, that's what they do. And what we're saying here is that these policies are very demeaning to all people that are doing that job, and then people are being denied a decent wage. Okay, so it's a double whammy that way. But no, you're a racist if you don't agree with this. This is just utterly absurd. Okay, absurd. And you're right. It's the drive to keep wages low. All right, and what I see is that you're actually creating a bifurcated society where it's just one class servicing the other class. That's what they want. Okay, and they want to, through hook or crook, to destroy everything in the middle. What actually made the country, in my opinion, it was a strong middle class with civic virtues that built the country. Okay, and that is being shrunk, and it is going to be discarded. Okay, and along with it is the electorate. All right, so I mean, this is a very their plan is to completely remake the country, the fabric of the country, without the consent of all, and it's the demand and desires of the few.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And so it is the few. You got a fateful coalition of the corporations, the the wealthiest corporations in the world, Zuckerberg, Gates, and Bezos, who are big immigration pushers. I mean, that's their agenda. And of course, they dress up their search for cheap labor with, well, we're against racism, we're for diversity, all the nice buzzwords, we're not driven by, because we want to screw over our workers in the horrible warehouses. No, we care about diversity.
Yeah, but
and you've got that, it's a coalition with them, with those people like Ilhan Omar and this Congresswoman Jayapal, who are themselves immigrants, but who have some sort of a deep-seated hatred for the country that they've decided to make their home in, which again,
Well,
very peculiar.
it's very peculiar. And the interesting thing is this bleeds into the $15 minimum wage thing, which again, some of the most powerful economic and financial forces in the United States are actually for it, because it can put a ceiling on wages. Everyone is making $15 an hour now. I mean, when you know, the way $15 an hour is presented to the public is that, you know, it's these big business interests that you don't want to pay, but there is an element of that. But you know, there are two things here. It's these people that are very, very wealthy see a way to cap people's incomes. I mean, it's really amazing.
Yes.
And then the other side, which is the side that I agree with, and makes the discussion of $15 an hour minimum wage very important, is that in New York City, absolutely. And before that, okay. I mean, in these metropolitan areas, it's very, very hard to get by because it really is serfdom. I mean, you have the overlords and then you have the serfs. Okay, giving them $15 an hour, I think that's great. But if you're in Iowa, you know, that's a very different thing, and I think it's something the states should. I don't know why the federal government has to mandate wages. Okay, like,
But that's right. It makes no.
It's none of their business. Okay,
it makes no sense. But again, you also got the thing of the $15. I mean, if you give somebody who sweeps up at McDonald's $15 an hour, and then you have a teacher who's gone through college, 4 years of college, and that teacher is probably only getting $18 an hour, then you got a problem, because you know there needs to be at least some difference. I mean, you have to pay people a little more if they've actually undertaken, you know, years of college and have big college debt to pay off.
Yeah, well, or just work at McDonald's and sweep floors and watch videos at night. Okay,
Right.
I mean, because if the difference is going to be between 15 and 18,
What's the point?
why should I exert myself? Okay,
Absolutely. No reason at all. Yeah, no. All right. Well, thank you very much, Peter. We will, of course, be maintaining our laser-like focus on Biden's first big legislative push. And remember, we are also now on Rumble. And if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.